Get into the world of celebrities and Bravo Labs with What the Reality with me, Cachet Roberts. I discuss the mess of it all, from reality TV, Hey Housewives, to iconic pop culture moments in the making. We are talking about it all. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and a comment wherever you listen to your podcast. Welcome to the pod. We are still figuring this thing out. I'm on a different platform right now. I did get the refund, by the way, but we're on a different platform, not even using my web camera. I'm using my phone camera, and I'm using my laptop camera, and it's giving. It's honestly giving. But yes, it is giving. If you can't tell, or you know by the title, what this episode is, I feel like it was only fitting for me to record this episode now during this week. And it's so crazy how the stars aligned for me to record this episode when, just so happens Real Housewives of Atlanta, Phaedra has made her epic return. I am super happy about it. A lot of people are not. It is what it is. But when I was initially planning my show, something I really wanted to dive into, the Paige and Craig of it all, the Bethany and Carol of it all, and something I was like, if the stars align, and I'm really proud of myself, the stars align, by the time Phaedra's on Real Housewives of Atlanta, this episode will be getting put out. This is part 1 of What's the Reality on Kandi Burruss and Phaedra Parks' friendship fallout. This is part 1. There's going to be 2 parts because there's a lot that happened in that friendship. This is What's the Reality on What the Reality. It's been a while, like I said, so you guys know, so you have something to look forward to. I'll be doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So in a month time span, you should have episodes of What's the Reality. I'm a one-woman show. It's a lot of research that goes into like the topics I select. You can always submit a topic, something you want me to really dive into. Right now I'm in a friendship wave. I can't wait for you guys to see the next friendship fallout I do. But right now I'm in a friendship fallout wave because the relationships are so dynamic on TV. But yes, welcome to part 1 of Phaedra Parks and Kandi Burruss's friendship fallout. I do want to set the scene and we're just going to dive into it. We don't do any reality topics. I have forgotten about the Bravo Awards, y'all. I don't know how much they're sticking around. But yeah, I want to dive right into it and set the scene. Okay, so in part 1, this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm talking about the grounds of their friendship. So it's going to be very similar to my Bethany and Carol run, their backgrounds, how they ended up on the show, all of that stuff. Kandi and Phaedra, though. And then I'm also going to get into season 7. Really, I'm going to get into season 7 because that is the season where, Phaedra and Apollo are going through it. I'm going to talk about some things that happen in between there, but I'm talking about everything in relation to the show. And then in part 2 will be the infamous friendship fallout. I'm going to be talking about seasons 8, 9, that reunion. But this is a nice little warm up. So obviously setting the scene, we know Kandi Burruss came on the show first. Kandi came on the show season 2. Kandi really is an OG. She was the last standing OG before Kenya and Portia. But she was the last standing OG. She came on in season 2. Season 2, now that was filmed in 2008 and it premiered in July 2009. So, and more so that was giving August because I have a date down, July 30th, 2009. So that's when Kandi came on. Kandi came on very much so. She already had a resume. Kandi Burruss, she wrote the hit Scrubs. She was in Escape, one of my mom's favorite girl groups. And, she was a pretty big songwriter. I think this was the first time Bravo hired someone that, my screen's falling. I think this is the first time that Bravo really, wait, let me readjust that. Sorry, y'all. Let me make sure that doesn't fall. Okay, that was the first time that Bravo hired someone and they already had a resume. They weren't relying on the show to kind of take them there. Kandi will always be one of the most successful housewives because when she was on the show, she already had a name. She already had connections. Bravo still loves Kandi Burruss. They really do. So much because when Martha's Vineyard was airing, Kandi, I think the last time she was on Watch Robin's Live, Kandi was on with Alex Tyree from Martha's Vineyard. He could not wait to sit next to her. He was so giddy. And this was after she announced her departure from the show. Just like I believe they still have a lot of love for Garcelle, Luann. There's certain people that Bravo genuinely loves. When Kandi came on, Nene Leakes was threatened. I like Nene Leakes, but she was 110 threatened because this was the new shiny new toy. After the first season, Nene Leakes was super popular. She still was very popular, but I definitely think she was threatened by Kandi. Kandi was cool with Kim, trying to get her singing career. We know how that turns out. But I'm just saying, Kandi was kind of not like this diamond in the rough. Like, it's kind of like, because she is rough around the edges, but she was like this. She's about her money. She was infamously coining the phrase, don't start none, won't be none. She was a star. She was a star and she was about her money. And that is the Kandi we still know to this day. The show really has not changed her at all. So that's a little bit about Kandi. She was also, I have in my notes, she was a hopeless romantic. I've always described Kandi as a hopeless romantic because I genuinely feel like even when she got on the show, the relationship she was in, it wasn't a relationship for her. Like, she shouldn't have been in that relationship. Rest in peace to AJ. Do you guys remember AJ? AJ had 6 kids. And I remember her mom not liking it. I'm going to talk about Mama Joyce a little bit too. But Kandi was a single mom when she came on, a hustler, a singer, she was the Jill Zarin, not like to the industry. She had the connections. And that's why I think Nene was so threatened by her, because it's like Nene had just received these connections from being on the show, whereas Kandi was already in the industry and already had these connections. So Kandi comes on in a relationship with AJ. We get to know Mama Joyce, and we know she is a single mom to Riley. Riley has a new show coming out, the Next Gen NYC, and she's also going to be on there with Ariana Behrman, throwback, Kim, and Kandi. They used to create music. So Ariana and Riley have maintained a relationship. But that's really much what signified Kandi as a housewife, that and her success. Also, there was talks, I'm pretty sure her and AJ were engaged, or they were working towards that. Unfortunately, by season 3, or by even the season 2 reunion, AJ had passed away. So in terms of Mama Joyce and Kandi's dynamic, it was something we didn't often see yet, like the mother-daughter relationships on Housewives at that time. We didn't really see the parent dynamic like that. I guess you could kind of relate it to, no, because I would say New Jersey was coming out at the same time as Atlanta. So we really didn't see that dynamic. I didn't watch OC. Did we see that dynamic? We didn't really see that on New York City. And I know that came on after Atlanta. Or was it before? I don't know. I might be mixing up dates. All I'm saying is, like, normally on the Housewives, at least with OC, it was about the husband. This time we get Kandi, this superstar, this singer, this producer. She knows her stuff. She's coming on with her mom. Mama Joyce ruffled a lot of feathers because a lot of people saw Mama Joyce as very, like, jealous of her daughter. A lot of people saw Mama Joyce as kind of spiteful, not wanting her daughter to share her money because that money was easy access to Mama Joyce. We're going to keep talking about Mama Joyce because I got some theories on her. But that really is Kandi Burruss on the show, how we know her. Moving on, so Kandi's major shifts and major conflicts within the group is with the HIC. I want to say HBIC, the HHIC, the head housewife in charge, which was Nene Leakes. It still is Nene Leakes. But that's where that conflict came from. And I remember watching it and instantly thinking Nene is a little jealous of this girl. And it's shocking because you would think that she wouldn't be. I mean, they both grew up in the hood, you know, they both come from different backgrounds. You would have thought they would have been an amazing duo. Nene was trying her, and she didn't like that Kandi was cool with Kim, because Kandi and Kim, they were creating music in the studio, as Nene would say. But the thing that mostly ruffled, I think, why they never hit it off is because they just weren't able to really see each other. Nene thought she was a chick from the hood, a little too hood. I'm pretty sure Nene says something along the lines of that, which is just insane when you're watching Atlanta, because it's like, Nene, come on, you were working in a strip club. But the hypocrisy that goes on during season 2, whatever. A lot of people don't really talk about Kandi Burruss versus Nene Leakes. I feel like they don't talk about it because Nene till this day is still talking about Kandi. Kandi is not talking about her. But till this day, something clearly rubbed her the wrong way. So now we are going to move on to season 3. That's a little bit about Kandi Burruss. Let's talk about Phaedra Parks. Phaedra Parks come on and she is pregnant AF. But she's trying to tell the girls she's not pregnant AF. I mean, you just look at her. I remember she was on and she said at one point she was only, I think, 5 weeks or maybe like 28 weeks, when it was definitely giving you're about to pop, like you're pretty much due. It wasn't giving 28 weeks, or she lied about something. So let's set up how Phaedra is. Phaedra comes on in season 3, so that is 2010. Phaedra comes on. She is a Southern belle. She is a church girl. Her parents, I think her dad is a pastor. Her mom, it would be the second. What, I don't know church terms, y'all. I really don't. She was raised in the church. Phaedra has a lot of different hats. As long as we've known her, y'all can say she lied. Phaedra keeps a job. She was a lawyer, an entrepreneur, but mostly a lawyer. Now she's like, the list is continued and adding on several jobs, but that's what we learned. So Phaedra is in a relationship with Apollo Nida. Apollo Nida, who would be her downfall in that relationship, and honestly her downfall on the show. But her and Apollo have this very interesting relationship. So apparently she met Apollo. The story changes a lot with how she met Apollo. So I don't know if she met Apollo in school, or did she meet him representing him on his case? Apollo and Phaedra were having a relationship while he was in prison. Apollo was in prison for 6 years for car theft auto, grand theft auto. So that's that. Like, it is very much it's very interesting because she's a lawyer, but she's with a convicted felon. She's pregnant. She's trying to tell the ladies she doesn't know when her due date is. She's telling a group full of mothers on Mother's Day. They don't make reality TV like this. She's telling a group full of women on Mother's Day that she doesn't know when her due date is, or this baby is ready to come up out of here. And they were like, come up out of here. Didn't you just say the other day you were like 22 weeks? She was like, yeah, but let's do our Phaedra. She's like, but if the head and the lungs are fully developed. She was like eating. She's like, you can have the baby. But you're not realizing these are all mothers. And Kim used to be a labor delivery nurse for 10 years. So our first impressions of Phaedra, very over the top. She has this over the top baby shower. It was a baby shower. Very over the top. She has, and also Phaedra comes in with Cynthia. Added that in there. Cynthia and Phaedra are new at the time. So she has this very over the top, baby shower. Everything is extra. The silver white eyeliner is in, the dramatic lashes. Phaedra looks very different now. I will say that. Her and Nene do, for sure. Kandi looks the same. But Phaedra looks very different now. And Phaedra was known to kind of fit in. She didn't not with Nene, but I mean in terms of Atlanta. Phaedra came on as a wordsmith. She was very smart. She was really good at reading the girls. In her confessionals, I'll never forget when Kim told her, how was your baby due? Like, I was a labor delivery nurse. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but she said, I worked in the labor department, nursery for 10 years. That baby has to be fully developed before you give birth. And I remember in Phaedra's confessional, she said, just because you dress up as a nurse doesn't make you a nurse. Phaedra has been reading the girls since she came on pregnant and all, lying about her pregnancy. So let's get into the root as to why she was lying about that. She was lying about that because her mom is a very strict Christian church woman, and she did not want timelines to be misleading. Her and Apollo were newly married. She was pregnant longer than how they were, she was pregnant longer than what they were married. Therefore, it would equal you having premarital sex. So I do think she tried running this narrative. She probably told her mom a week or two after she got married that she was pregnant, when she was already pregnant when she got married. A lot of people still give Phaedra crap and flack till this day. I think it is one of the most funniest moments, because I always say it's interesting how reality TV stars get on reality TV and think their stuff will not be checked. It's almost like a criminal going on reality TV, Jen Shah, and not thinking nothing will happen of it. But she really thought she could run with it. The ladies caught on. Phaedra's biggest conflict, like I say, I think Phaedra and Kandi really bonded over the fact of not their dislike of Nene, but Nene was a tough woman to get to know on firsthand. And Nene and Phaedra didn't really click. We even see that at the reunion, where Phaedra is like, we went to school together in Athens. And Nene's like, no, I did not. All of this stuff, like, I never knew you, I never knew of you. And then Phaedra's like, Athens is very small. And this is what I'm saying. Phaedra was reading the girls. She even had Nene gagged, because she was like, you're right. We didn't go in the same grade together because you're older than my oldest brother. And Nene was like, I am just a couple years older than you. And she was like, yeah, older than my oldest brother, which is so hilarious saying. Phaedra's a wordsmith. But Kandi loved that. She ate that up because Kandi and Nene still weren't good. It was still some tension in season 3. Like, they're not best friends. And as we know, till this day, they still aren't best friends. But I do think there are issues with coming into the group as newbies. You know, Cynthia came in, instantly bonded with Nene, giving her a friend contract, all of that stuff, yada, yada, yada. That was different. Then we also had this whole, do you guys remember, shorts versus the talls? There was this whole thing. We also meet Nene's friend, Marlo. So there was this thing of like the shorts versus the talls. And and Phaedra and there's so many names. Phaedra and Kandi were the shorts. Just so happened to be. So that's kind of like the introduction. But yeah, we don't really, we just see Phaedra. Phaedra comes on as a liar. And a lot of people would say this would kind of set up her future as she is on the show, because she is known to lie. But I do think she was trying to be a good Christian daughter and not trying to ruin her mom's idea of her not having premarital sex when she was most likely pregnant when she was visiting Apollo in the prison. That's the real tea. So that's kind of their places on the group. I want to talk about things that kind of happened before we get to season 7, which I call is kind of like this reality wake up, kind of like Trouble in Paradise. I'm not going to go through all the seasons, but I just wanted to set up like their common grounds and all of that stuff. Other thing I wanted to mention is that they were good during like season 3. Kandi and Phaedra, they did form a genuine friendship, because Kandi visited Phaedra at her, and see, I can say this, I was about to say something. It was a southern home where she had the baby. She delivered the baby. It was a very southern home in Augusta. They were in Georgia though. And Kandi had driven all the way down there to go visit her. It's like she had like a whole special suite ready or something. Maybe it was for the midwife or something. I don't know. I remember her being in a suite though, and it was very like southern. Very southern. The neighborhood was very southern. So now we are on season 4. You know, they're still riding. It's the shorts versus the toss. There is a trip to Africa. That's where we meet Marlo. But yes, they are very cool. So much that Phaedra introduces Todd to Kandi. Mama Joyce would go on to dislike this. Am I shocked? No. But no, Mama Joyce would go on to not like this because, as she said, why would you introduce 2 short people with big heads to each other? To Phaedra. I don't know. We're getting to my Mama Joyce theory because I do have some theories on that. But Phaedra was the one that introduced Kandi and Todd to each other. And Kandi and Todd are still married, to a lot of people's shock. They're still married. So yes, like I said, we got 4, 5, 6. Some things are happening. We get to know Kenya more. Hair care, no. Kenya more hair care. We get to know Kenya and Portia. I'm bringing up Kenya though because Kenya and Kandi have maintained a very neutral friendship. Kandi wasn't really feeling Kenya at first because Kenya was doing the most, but they end up maintaining a very neutral friendship. And Kandi tries not to really pick a side, which is kind of the first time I see Kandi not really being loyal. She tried being loyal in the beginning, but there were some discrepancies, especially when Kenya and Apollo were allegedly texting. That was a whole thing. That may be another What's the Reality episode because that is too juicy not to talk about, like the fallout between Kenya and Phaedra. But that might be one part. But I'm just saying there's some discrepancies in that. And I feel like that is the first example we did get of Kandi not really holding down Phaedra as I think a friend probably should have. She was like wary of her, but I do think she was very like flip-floppy when it came to defending Phaedra to her. And if you guys recall, we're slowly creeping into season 7 as I say this, but there were alleged texts between between Apollo and Kenya. And this is something that Apollo would soon say did not happen, or they did text and she did use the word baby, but he had said that she offered to give him a sexual pleasure with her mouth. Let's say that. And this turns out to be false. And we learned that in season 7. And this is when we really see Kandi kind of like jump ship, in my opinion, because this has turned out to be false. And she's like, well, Phaedra's been calling her all types of hoes and everything. So like clearly Kenya needs to be forgiven. However, if you can put your feet in Phaedra's shoes, you would see that as soon as she met Kenya was gunning for Apollo. They don't make it right. I think Apollo was totally inappropriate. But as a friend, you're in your confessional. Apollo's kind of fine. And you and Phaedra were cool at this time. So my point is there was multiple reunions after those moments where I feel like Kandi really played too much neutral. And someone that plays neutral is a dangerous person because you don't have an opinion. So let's lead up to season 7 because a lot happened in season 7. So this is what I was saying, the reality wake up, because I think Phaedra had just got done reading Kenya for filth at the reunion. Kenya actually was just done getting dragged by Portia at the reunion as well. So season 7 is premiering in 2014. And I think this is kind of where we really see the hiccups between Kandi and Phaedra. Like, I feel like it was a little highlighted in season 6 while all that stuff was going down, but we really see it in season 7. So Phaedra is fresh with a newborn, and Apollo is about to be back in jail. So Apollo is facing conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bank fraud. I think they said mail fraud, and I'm just like, what is that? Yeah, commit mail fraud. I do have that down. So he's already facing allegations. But remember, guys, they just had a baby. She was recovering from being, or she was pregnant at the season 6 reunion. So she had the baby. They just had the newborn. It was like Dylan, yes, Aiden and Dylan. Oh my gosh, I kept wanting to say Prince. I think that's his nickname though, but or President. I think it's Mr. President. So they're coming fresh off of season 6 reunion where they did have a very united front, Apollo and Phaedra. They had a very united front, making out on the couch. It was very extra, and I think that was Phaedra's last attempt to kind of prove to everyone that she lives this perfect life, just like she didn't have premarital sex. It was that last attempt. Camera's rolling, season 7. He's convicted, and he has to turn himself into prison. So we're seeing the cracks of that relationship, and unfortunately, the cracks in her relationship with Apollo did rub off on the cracks in Kandi, because Kandi at that point did have to choose a side. And remember, the men are all cool. Apollo and Todd ended up forming a very close, tight friendship, and that is where Candy's loyalty kind of fluctuates, because she's like, should I support, my husband, Todd, but in the words of Nene, who is Todd, or should I support my friend that introduced me to Todd? That's another season. We'll get into that. But I'm just saying, I think that is where Candy's mindset goes and where she struggles with kind of holding it down, because she did struggle with that. Okay, so Apollo and Phaedra are really facing the reality of their relationship. Phaedra is facing the fact that she very may well be a single mom. All of this is playing out too, because he goes away. He turns himself into prison on camera. But this season is very difficult for Phaedra because it seems like they're very estranged and the act is no longer going on. And she's raising a newborn. I'm also noticing in this season, her and Kandi are not as close anymore. Her, Portia, and Nene have more scenes. If anything, her and Nene have more scenes. And this is also a point of contention in her friendship with Kandi, because Candy's like, why are you friends with someone that was dogging you? I mean, why are you? Because she says she don't know you. She don't know you. But I do think Kandi was also threatened by that friendship, because she's like, why are you all of a sudden cool with Nene? And Kandi does this thing, and y'all know what she does. Like, love her, hate her, she does this passive aggressive thing in her confessionals where she makes a look and she throws shade, but it's like she'll act like she didn't do that. Like, she does this thing with her face where she always just looks stank sometimes. Like, she got a stank attitude on her face sometimes. When asked about something, she's like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of like she was throwing shade. And Phaedra was going through a tough time. Now, we giving grace right now to Phaedra because we know some stuff is coming up. But I'm just saying, watching season 7, if you were to ask me who was responsible for that friendship breakup, as of season 7 leading up, 7 and 8, in my opinion, was definitely Kandi. Now, season 9, some things happen that are still, that you still can't recover from 10 years later. That's a different story. I'm talking about season 7. We're kind of seeing Kandi jump ship. And in my opinion, pick a man. We are doing a deep dive of What's the Reality with me, Cassia Roberts. We're doing What's the Reality with Kandi and Phaedra's friendship fallout. So I just want to recap before we get more into season 7. We talked about where these two ladies come from. We got Kandi singing, background, already all these connections in the industry. Atlanta, if anything, she put on Atlanta, let's be real. And then we got Phaedra, this Southern belle, who occasionally would tell these small stories and lie because she didn't want her image. She had a big image problem. And as I'm saying that right now, I vaguely remember them having a party, I think it was for Aiden, or at the baby shower. And even Apollo had mentioned something like everything's always concerned with your, image. Apollo had a serious anger problem. So it wasn't shocking to kind of see the cracks. Feel like he had a serious anger problem. We can even talk about pillow fight, which will definitely be an episode on what's the reality for what the reality. That, like, he had anger issues. He was already in prison. Was she the lawyer that bailed him out? And then was she pregnant as well during that time? I don't know. I think she was. You guys have to let me know if that was confirmed or not. Was she the lawyer representing him? And is that why they got so buddy close, pregnant before she was even married? I just wonder how that whole situation went down. We're now in season 7. Things are very weird. They don't have a solo scene. They don't have a duo scene together, Kandi and Phaedra. So we're kind of seeing that. But after the end of season 6, I do feel like Kandi was supporting her until Apollo and Kenya were both crossed the line and were texting each other. And that was also a conversation during season 7 of like, y'all both crossed the line. Like, why, Kenya, are you calling him babe? But I will say Kandi kind of fluctuated a lot when it came to who are you believing? Like, why aren't you kind of holding down Phaedra? In my opinion, that's where we kind of see her flip-flop, like Cynthia, like, or not even flip-flop, it's just kind of like you would expect you to have a little more loyalty to to Phaedra. And so at this time, Apollo and Phaedra, very estranged. But guess who was there for Phaedra? Nee Leakes. And this is what's rubbing Kandi the wrong way. She's like, why are you cool with this girl that was dogging you, saying she didn't know you, making fun of you, and you said you could not stand. But also at this time, y'all, Kandi is warming up to Kenya. So I have a feeling at this time during season 7, something we don't really talk about, but we did touch on the whole Nee and Phaedra being all of a sudden cool. But something we really didn't talk about is how it more so alliances, because Kandi and Phaedra, you already have your own alliance, but you're befriending someone that was clearly hitting on my husband, seeking him out. It just wasn't a good story to tell. And now I'm befriending someone that you clearly have beef with. I wonder how much of it they were both being petty with each other, because I think they were being petty with each other. Like, you're both befriending personal ops of each other. That's the real tea. So Apollo was convicted and went to jail. He did plead guilty to those charges. He changed his plea, and we're seeing a lot of energy, negativity. He mentions divorce. She's like, well, you want a divorce? I'm gonna give you a divorce. What else happens? He also is doing a lot of scenes, but not scenes with her. He's doing scenes with Patricia Thomas. That is who he's doing scenes with, because he's so upset that she won't film with him. He's so upset that he may not have anything to come home to. I think he went to jail. I had to find out how long he went to jail this time. Wait a minute. Yeah, so the second time he went another 5 years and 3 months, which is crazy. And then he returned to jail a couple days after for violating his parole. Yeah, back in prison 9 days after being released. That was a whole thing. He's not smart. But so he does eventually end up like pleading guilty to all of that stuff. But before he does all of this, he goes on a nasty rampage and, is basically trying to do all of this stuff. So I guess he needed to clear his conscience before he went. He had to hit up Todd like, hey, I'm not going to have anywhere to put my stuff. This kind of gets more hashed out like during season 8, but like, hey, I'm not going to have like anywhere to put my stuff, or like she's not trying to bring the kids to see me in prison. And that was another thing Phaedra got a lot of flack for, because she did not want to bring her kids to the prison Apollo was going to be at. Can you blame her though? A lot of the women, including Kandi, were like, well, Phaedra, you know what? Like, he's going to be away for 5 years. They're going to not even remember him. I mean, she just had Dylan. But I think Phaedra just needed to make the best decision for herself, because at that moment she was a single mom and she was going to be doing this all alone. Phaedra was very quiet this season. Not even quiet, but just like you could tell she was just going through a lot. So, and you just couldn't hide, you couldn't pretend anymore. And that's something Phaedra was so good at doing, was pretending that everything was okay, even when these allegations or accusations initially came up. That was a huge point of contention. Anything Apollo could do right before he went to prison. So much as to getting a scene with Kenya, or, you know, reaching out to her. They were somewhere, and I think it was like at a party, and he's like, she's like, why did you lie on me? Like, I never offered. They were saying fellatio back then. I don't know if that's going to get bleeped, but they were saying that back then. I've never heard of that until then. Oral, like he said he did lie on her, and he was sorry about that. And this is when Kenya tells the group, and Kandi's like, well, I need to tell Phaedra because she's been calling you all types of horrors, and that's clearly not true, or you didn't do this. And I remember even when Kandi delivered that message, Phaedra wasn't in a space to hear that, because she's like, this is still my op. At the end of the day, this is still someone that was comfortable flirting with my husband. So we get that. Another bombshell Apollo drops is that Phaedra has been cheating on him with Mr. Chocolate, and she's been cheating on him. And this is something else that I think Kandi had fed into, like, you know, she's not even trying to drop the kids off. You know, she wasn't even really with Apollo when they broke up. She wasn't even there when he turned himself in. That's that. I mean, the group was not rallying around Phaedra at the moment. So much that information Apollo told Peter, Peter and Cynthia. I think Cynthia was also in the room when he had called. And she ran with this and had to confront Phaedra about it. And she talks about this being the most uncomfortable moment, because in reality TV shows, when you are privy to information, a producer is going to make you come out with it, whether you want to come out with it or not. You have to be privy to that situation. This season, we also see Claudia on, but I will say multiple times in the season, it is brought to Kandi that Phaedra feels like she is not a good friend. They go to Puerto Rico before we get into a very big factor, in my opinion, that really like shook that up. And I just think, I mean, at least their friendship, something I think that kind of just showed they weren't really the same. Let's talk about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, we're going there for Demetria, and Phaedra and Nene show up together. So Phaedra has already rubbed Demetria the wrong way. Demetria wants to get into pop music, and she was a 40 plus woman at the time, or 30 plus, whatever. Demetria thought she read Phaedra saying, me and you only got two things in common. It's that both are men, 7 in common. I mean, it was low-key a read. She's like, mine is going for 7. Mine is here for 7. Yours is going for 7. Whatever. It was a read, but you weren't asked back on Atlanta. I mean, and then as soon as he got with somebody else, he was married to her within 7. So how about that? But so we got Puerto Rico. At this point, multiple women in the group have told Kandi what's going on with you and Phaedra. Kandi is shocked. And this is a thing I will point out in conclusion, because I don't want this to be a super long episode. We're getting to the tensions, and then we're going to get into the epic tension fallout in my next episode. But one thing Kandi likes to do is pretend like she doesn't know information. You knew things were not, well, you guys had several conversations at the point, like, you don't really talk to me, you don't really text me, yada, yada, yada. So that leads me to Phaedra's feeling of contention at this moment. She feels like during all of this stuff that was going on, even Kandi wanting her to bring the kids to the prison, Kandi not really checking in on her, not calling her as much, Kandi communicating with Apollo because Todd was. These are already kind of strikes you're seeing in a friendship, and it's kind of just making you go like, let me take a step back. And hence why at this point, I was on Phaedra's side, because Kandi was not a good friend to her when she was going through a divorce with Paulo. In Kandi's defense, she's like, well, you weren't even really with him. You know, you had told me that, or like you was already trying to divorce him. So what does that have to do with me? And I can't control Todd. Now, y'all, we know women can control men. I mean, we know men can control women, but we know happy wife, happy life. There's definitely a way she could have told Todd, hey, you need to roll it back. We're talking to Apollo, because now you're jeopardizing my friendship with Phaedra. But Kandi doesn't do that. She feeds into it. She's there when Apollo is talking to Todd, talking crap about, she won't even let me see the kids. Apollo was not concerned about seeing the kids. Apollo was concerned with getting his X plus of minutes back on reality TV before he went. So he had a check coming to him for his depository or whatever in prison, whatever. He could spend it on some Mentos or something. He was not concerned about seeing them kids. I mean, granted, they have a good relationship now, but he was trying to paint Phaedra in a very negative light before he left. So the damage was done. So Puerto Rico, Kandi and Phaedra have a conversation, and Kandi confronts her and saying, multiple women are coming up to me and saying that you feel a type of way. And I'm shocked I'm not hearing this from you. I even think they have a breakdown and they start crying. And she's like, I mean, I don't hear from you either. And this is what I mean. Kandi was really in her own world, because it's like, when I'm going through my lowest moment, now I got to also worry about reaching out to you on Phaedra's behalf. And then Phaedra's like, well, I'm just saying I would never expect Nene to be hearing more from Nene at this point in my life than you. And then Kandi said that, you know, well, I have stuff going on as well, like my play or something had just got canceled, her musical or something. And Phaedra's like, okay. But in her confessional, she's like, the fact that you would even compare your play being canceled to me going through a divorce, prepping to be a single mom, a transition I thought you would have helped me with the most. And she says, like, if money would make me sleep better at night, I would be fine. She alluded something to the point of, like, Kandi being mad that she's missing out on money. And this is where it's kind of a miscommunication in the friendship, because Kandi was more so concerned about people that, you know, she had promised jobs to and it didn't make it. So she was very devastated about that being canceled. Did it come off as like tone deaf though? Because it's like your friend, your really good friend, is going through a difficult moment in their relationship and their partner is going off to prison for the next 6 years. And you're over here talking about, well, your play's being canceled. Like, okay. Yikes. So they're missing each other, but they agree to be better and like stop going to other women in the group. But like I said, Portia at this point has brought it up to Kandi. Nene has brought it up to Kandi. Cynthia has brought it up to Kandi. Who hasn't brought it up to Kandi? So the only thing I would say is like Phaedra definitely could have done better, like talking to her directly. Like, girl, what is going on in this relationship, right? We get back from Puerto Rico. They agreed to move on, but neither one of them really has. Like, they're not really talking to each other additional time. Like, nothing really has changed. So it's just kind of like, it was just kind of like, you're just, I'm forgetting all my phrases today. It was, dust under the rug. The rug is getting bumpier though at this point. It's getting bumpier. So they get back from Puerto Rico, and like I said, the two worlds colliding. Kandi also brings up, like, I'm just shocked that you're confiding in Nene of all people. Kandi was definitely jealous of Phaedra and Nene's relationship. Point blank, period. But like I said, so we're back from Puerto Rico. We get this ultimate sit down dinner. And when you are privy to information, the information must come out. No matter who you are and no matter who you think you are on the show. You know, Cynthia was privy to this information. And this information, of course, gets to Kenya and Claudia. Side note, I'm really enjoying Claudia these days. She looks amazing. She's on Carlos King's podcast. And I'm seeing a different side to her that I never saw before. And I wish we saw this side because she's actually funny and hilarious. So they get a hold of this Mr. Chocolate and, address Phaedra. Cynthia's so nervous she can't even spit it out. We learn behind the scenes, there's like teleprompters. Bring it up. Bring up Mr. Chocolate. Bring it up now to Phaedra. So Phaedra knows something is coming. Phaedra looks very bothered as well. Phaedra doesn't have time for this. She's going through divorce. The man, he already turned himself in. So what else happens? So Cynthia eventually brings it up and like, he said, you're talking to somebody by the name of Mr. Chocolate. It is a whole thing. Kenya says something slick because when don't she? Phaedra takes her wallet, almost hits her. And this is after Kenya got dragged by Portia. Everyone's like, no, 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 no. You were better than this. Portia's trying to get her out there. Nini's trying to get her out there. Who is still sitting down? Or Kandi was still sitting down. She didn't really comfort Phaedra like I thought she would have. I had to think about that. She didn't really comfort her. I'm pretty sure she was still sitting down. Phaedra leaves. She gets into to Portia's car, Nini's car. She's like, get me out of here. And that's when I kind of knew, oh yeah, their friendship's done. Because Kandi was still sitting there. Like, she reacted. I think she did, like, get up to, like, check on her. And then she eventually ended up going back to the table. Like, but that was it. And it was just, it spoke volumes because it was just like, oh, like, you're still at the table and everything. And they talk about it again at the reunion, how their relationships ebb and flow, how Phaedra's going through something, Kandi's going through something. Kandi does her baby cry. It's not even baby cry. It's a I can't breathe cry. Because when she starts to cry, it's like the voice cracks. I'm like, girl, spit it out. She says how it just was like really hurting to hear like, Phaedra was saying all of this stuff. Yada, 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 as it should. And how it was hurtful to hear her say that she thought about, like, she cared about money, all of that stuff. Which I can understand completely. Because I don't think she was saying it like that about, like, the play. But I do think to kind of compare it in that moment, like, well, I haven't heard from you. And it's just like, well, I haven't heard from you. And, I'm going through this play thing. It's so tone deaf at the moment, given what Phaedra was going through. But, that's Kandi. Kandi is about her business. She's about her papers. She's about her money. And that's not a knock or dig, but I'm saying she remains the same in and off the show. We're also hearing they're not even really talking off the show, and there was like just a few little hiccups or something. So I feel like there was stuff that they wanted to talk about off camera, but they never got a chance to because, Phaedra was becoming a new single mom, and, Kandi was really working on settling in this new marriage, because they already had issues a year into their marriage, like conflicting issues, all of that stuff, a year in. They were in different places of their life. Phaedra needed Kandi to show up in a way Kandi could not show up. And Phaedra was shocked when she couldn't show up because she was there for her all those years. And it's kind of that saying, like, who's there for you when, you're happy, but it's when you're really down, who really shows up for you. And they kept missing each other. But like I said, I expected more. So they kind of agreed to like really try to work on their friendship. There's no animosity between the two this is the season 7 reunion. No animosity, thankfully, all of that stuff. But it ends up not being the same. My next episode, I'm going to talk about in the next, what's the reality on what the reality. The next part, the final part, I'm going to talk about 8 and really 9 in that whole reunion blow up, because it was a blow up. But we even see Apollo's crazy behavior before he even departs, and the whole chainsaw of it all. We kind of get hints of like, was there abuse? And I feel like when she's talking through all that, Kandi's just a stone face. Like, I just feel like we got a lot of vulnerability from Phaedra, which we never really do. Got a lot of vulnerability from her season 7, and the women just really didn't support her besides Portia and Nini. And remember, Portia was downgraded because of the incident with Kenya. So she was on there as support, but really I would say Phaedra had support of one. Kandi tried to support her, but Kandi was between a rock and a hard place because Kandi was in a new relationship and Todd wanted to be the man. But in my Nini's voice, who is Todd? But yes, that is your first part. So we really got into, who they are before they meet each other, what they are on the show, what they are to the show. We got the Southern Belle, we got the singer, we got someone that's super Christian, but then they also, I would say they even bonded over sex. You guys remember that crazy party Phaedra threw for Kandi for a surprise? A whole stripper comes out and it's ridiculous. Literally, no, all pun intended. That's the stripper's name, I'm pretty sure. And Mama Joyce is literally there. Mama Joyce is there and literally is disgusted because this guy does some things. Look him up or not. Find it on Reddit. Of course, all my research is from Reddit. A lot of my research is from pure memory. I recently did a rewatch of the first couple seasons. I haven't done the fallout because it gets bad in season 9. It gets bad. But what do you guys think? I genuinely believe the fallout initially was on Kandi's behalf. I do wish that was something they could have tied up. I do think Kandi could have made herself more available as a friend, as a true friend. If you guys are really friends, I think you could have made yourself a little more available to her. And I also think, which we're going to get into, you shouldn't be doing certain stuff with her ex's belongings. I was on Team Phaedra up until the season 9 reunion, literally, or season 9, but even season 9 was like low-key on Phaedra's side. But I'm just saying, I do think the friendship wouldn't have even gotten to this point if Kandi showed some support. I don't think she was very much a supportive friend when Phaedra needed it, and she was more concerned about what was going on with her businesses. And as you should be, you are a go-getter, you are the money hustler. But your friend is literally becoming a single mom, going through a divorce. Her partner literally is going on a tyrant and spewing all of these lies about her. Who wouldn't be mad? But yes, that was your part 1 of What's the Reality on Kandi Burruss's and Phaedra Park's friendship fallout. In part 2, we're going to definitely get into the seasons 8 through 9. So just 8 and 9, because I just did season 7. 8 and 9, and then of course the reunion, the huge revelation, because it was a huge revelation. Thank you so much for listening to What the Reality with me, Kasha Roberts. Until the next time, part 2, which will be the following Friday, of course, because we are doing a Real Housewives of Atlanta recap on Tuesday. Like, we have to. But thank you so much for listening. Period. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, What the Reality with me, Kasha Roberts. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and a comment wherever you listen to your podcast. Let me know what I should be doing. Let me know how I'm doing. All compliments are welcome. Until the next time.